both.
My phone is silenced, and I'm ready for the greatest intro music in the history of podcasting.
Welcome to episode 65 of the Liberator Podcast. I'm here with James Silverman as usual and Russell Hunter, and we've got an interesting episode for you today. Good content. We're talking to a candidate in Florida, Drake Wuertz. Thanks for coming on, Drake.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm blessed to be here, and as I've said to you guys off air, the entrance music to the Liberator Podcast is top notch. No other podcast intro matches it.
Yeah. I think you wanted to hear it. You wanted us to play it so you could hear it.
Yeah.
I just realized he's like, play that intro music and get this guy pumped up. It doesn't take much to pump you up. Awesome.
Well, you'll get to hear it when you watch this live on Thursday. So.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. So, Drake, for those of I've gotten to know you a little bit as we've communicated online over the past couple months here, but just for those of our listeners and watchers who don't know you, just talk about who you are, where you came from, what you're passionate about, and how you joined the Abolitionist movement.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, my name is Drake Wuertz. I live in Altamont Springs, Florida, which is the Orlando area. I've been here in Florida for 8 years, originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Valerie. We've been married for almost 11 years now. We do have 3 beautiful kids, 1 girl and 2 boys. As far as me coming into the abolitionist movement, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how I came to find Christ as my Lord and Savior. I grew up, in Southern Indiana. My parents were very young, teenage parents. My mother, who came up in the Catholic Church, was actually pressured to abort me, and she chose to go through with the pregnancy and carry me to term. And so, here I am today, by the grace of God. But I grew up spending a lot of time at my grandparents' house, who were on my father's side, and they were non-denominational Christians, missionaries, and always took me to church, and I got to see genuinely the love of Christ. And then I had this whole other life, living with young parents where God was not in the household. So as a teenager, as a lot of folks, I was kind of building up my testimony. I went on a path away from God, went on a path away from the Lord, and I always believed in God. He was just somewhere on my list. He was definitely not at the top of my list. Into a life of addiction and sin. And then I met the woman who would become my wife, and actually 5 years ago this month, I recommitted my life and made Christ the Lord and Savior of my life. God went from just being somewhere on my list to being first and foremost in my life, and it went from just believing in Christ to having a genuine relationship with Him as my Heavenly Father. When it comes to becoming an abolitionist, I've traditionally always been against abortion, but like a lot of folks that come into the abolitionist movement, I was just, I'll vote Republican, I'll vote pro-life, and donate to a pregnancy center every now and again. I'm doing my part to end the Holocaust. That was kind of that was my mindset.
Yeah.
And it happened quickly how I became an abolitionist. It really did. It was actually, as we're recording this, it was January of this year, is when I was really exposed to the abolitionist movement. There was a state representative here in Florida who had filed the Pain Capable Child Protection Act, which is the 20-week ban.
Mm-hmm.
And me, in my typical pro-life mind, I was like, yes, step in the right direction. God bless you for filing this. This is what I was trained and taught. That's what the culture was pushing, that, any kind of incremental steps was saving lives. And then I'll never forget, on a Facebook post, I had replied to this state representative, who is not like he's not like a rhino or anything. I mean, he's like a Trump anti-masker, and so I replied, and then I remember getting a proper rebuking from Ann Marchetti, who I believe you guys know. Yeah.
searching for Wilberforce abolitionist organization there.
Abolish Abortion Florida. Yes, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but she said something along the lines of this law is wicked. You need to honor the Lord. Abortion is murder. Abortion needs to be abolished. And she quoted Exodus 20, "Thou shalt not murder." And I thought, wow. And then she sent me she connected with me directly and sent me some links to some videos. And what really changed it for me, guys, obviously, and going in prayer, but was the movie that Russell's was in as well, as Babies Were Murdered Here, Part 2. When I watched that, and then I saw how the pro-life industry has almost a vested interest in keeping child sacrifice legal, and then just all the details of heartbeat bills and how we're trusting murderers to find a heartbeat, and just really how, for lack of a better term, how pointless some of these incremental measures were. And I was just like, I couldn't sleep for days. I was like, wow. In my mind, I was like, I thought this is what we were trying to do the whole time. I thought, oh, you mean, oh, wait a minute, the 10th Amendment, we can just tell the Supreme Court to pound sand? We got a Republican-led majority legislature. We're supposed to be against abortion. Let's do this. I'm all on board. And so that's really how I came into the abolitionist movement. And then it was, then I found you guys' podcast, and I listened to some of the archives, and then, listened back to when Amy Coney Barrett was on the Supreme Court, and I listened to those archives, and I'm like, oh, wow, I've been duped the whole time.
So it sounds like it didn't take a lot. You just needed to see it and hear it, and then it was like, oh, this is, you sound a lot like Joseph Silk. Joseph Silk, way back in 2016, he had a heartbeat bill, and it was his heartbeat bill that had passed through committee that he gutted and floor subbed the first sort of, it wasn't a perfect, it was like abortion is murder, let's get rid of it bill. But he was like one of these things too. It's like, well, no, is this not what we've always wanted? We can do this. Yeah, we can do this. There seems to be that kind of convert to abolition. And then the other kind that kicks against the pricks for a year or 5 and then changes. But the thing I think we always want to say, hey, notice this, is a guy who sold out to the word of God, just hearing abolitionism and going well, that. Yeah. And that's almost all it's necessary. So it's we just need to get it out there. If it get it out there, anyone who's abiding in Christ, believes in the word of God, is going to be on board. So
right.
You're another one of those testimonies.
And it was, what really sealed the deal for me is that when I saw abolitionist bills or abolitionist language, or went to your website, or when I went to, Bonnie Cannoni's website, Abolish Abortion Florida, everything is based in scripture. Everything is biblical, and it's unapologetically stands on the word of God. And when I remember early on, because I was kind of one of those guys, in the first couple of weeks, I was like, oh, I can be a pro-life abolitionist, right? Is that a thing? No. I was like, no, I can't.
You could if you want to be unhelpful.
Exactly. You want to damage the movement. But the Florida Right to Life had actually messaged me, because they were looking for a Central Florida leader. And this was right in the beginning of me finding abolition. And I said, well, hey, just so you know, I'm for abolishing abortion as murder. No exceptions, no compromise. I won't support incremental steps. And then they're like, oh, well, I know you're an abolitionist, but incrementalism, it has saved lives, but we can go ahead and part ways. I was like, okay, great.
Yeah. They're not both in when it comes to it. When it comes down to it. If you're for abolition, they'll part ways.
Yeah. All right. So you encounter Ann in the comment section. She sends you all these links. You watch Babies Still Murdered here. You become an abolitionist. Now go from there back in January to now you're running for office. You're running for House District 30 in Florida. Talk about how that happened, why you did that, and what you are running to accomplish.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And during those early stages of me, transitioning into abolitionism, so it may be, I went through, I made some beginning kind of missteps or mishaps, I guess, that I had to encounter in order to really get on the right path of, hey, we are straight abolitionists, no exceptions, no compromises. This is murder. We won't take anything less. I tried to do the whole sanctuary city thing. And then I realized, okay, that's not just, and I went through, tried to go through city commissions and all that, because there's an abortion mill literally a mile from my house. And in Florida currently, as it sits, a baby can be murdered up to 24 weeks of development. And so, it's an abortion clinic right down the road. And then I started going out there and actually being on the sidewalks with the other abolitionists and just truly seeing the wickedness that happens there outside of the mill. Like there's been so times where you could just feel the demonic presence, and then seeing some, babies get saved, and just kind of just being in the trenches of what is actually happening in this spiritual battle. And then I tried to coerce with some state legislators to get them to hear an abolition bill, because until then there just mostly been some of the the female abolitionists, and I was involved in the local Republican Party, so I was like, hey, maybe they'll hear me out. I can explain it differently, and as I'm sure you guys have seen,
I'll be the abolitionist that explains it differently, and that's all that's necessary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They'll hear me out, right? I'm one of the boys.
I'm likable.
Yeah, exactly. But as I'm sure you guys have ran into over the years, they'll tell you what you want to hear to get you out of their office, and then you call back the next week, and their legislative aide will tell you some excuses like, oh well, this the representative thinks that this is an all or nothing approach, and this is quite divisive, and this will never pass through the courts, and just these kind of worldly excuses.
Right.
And then I realized I need to run for office. Like God had compelled me. He put that on my heart. And the excuses that I had were my career. I was working for WWE at the time. And for those that are listening or watching or are not aware, that's the biggest professional wrestling company in the world, like corporate entity, publicly traded. Just the time commitment wouldn't be there, but I just felt this pulling from God. Like, man, I kept getting called back. And I remember they called me into the office because there was video of me, speaking at a city commission meeting against the abortion mill that's in town, or there was photos that leaked of me outside of the sidewalk of the abortion mill. And they said, hey, we shouldn't be getting involved in these political things. You work for a publicly traded company. And I told, my department head straight up, I said, look, before I'm a wrestling referee, before I'm a Republican, before I'm a constitutionalist, any of that, I said, sir, I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ. And this is not a political issue to me. It needs to be fought in the political arena, but this is a moral issue, and this is a God issue. And sir, in my heart and in God's heart and God's eyes, 75,000 babies are being murdered each and every single year here in our state, and I'm going to do everything that I can to stop it. And if you want to fire me, if you want me to lose my job, then so be it. I'll go fight that battle elsewhere. And then 2 weeks later, I was let go. That combined with not complying with their mask mandates and vaccine mandates. I actually
was on YouTube to, I just kind of watch you and watch different things, and I was like, man, this is so weird. I'm like, no offense. I didn't grow up watching WWE or anything like that.
Of course.
And I'm watching this podcast with these guys that are like bashing you over like saying something about masks or something. And I was like, what is going on? Like, why does anyone care that this referee is saying these things? And they were just so kind of hostile and childish towards you. But then I realized the WWE, just maybe you can clarify this for me. Like, you're a referee, but you're also sort of a performer. You're performing, and they knew who you were, and it was kind of like, is this guy going to give us a bad look? And you're cognizant of that. It's like you're going to shine your light, and I'm like, it's probably not a field that was dominated by tons of Christians. I don't know. Is it? I mean,
no, it is not, and the majority of the shareholders and the vocal fans, I would say they're very liberal minded. Absolutely. So, there's a lot of pro aborts and, LGBTQ and, influence and indoctrination. And
did they know you were a Christian before all this?
Yes.
So it was fine if you were a Christian, but if you were a Christian who spoke from that worldview,
Yes.
we got to let you go.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a Christian that kept silent, not a problem at all. And I also did, I got suspended for attending church during the pandemic because I put my coworkers at risk.
Oh, you're killing people's grandmothers.
Yeah, exactly.
Left and right.
Yeah, having to be gather with other Christians. So, I say that to let you know that every excuse that I had not to run for office, God just absolutely closed those doors. He closed those doors and guided me to a new career. Where I work for a Christian conservative business owner. I went in for a job interview, and he ended up sharing the gospel with me. And I was like, okay, place to work.
I would like to work here, sir. Yeah.
Yes,
awesome.
yes. And then he gave me, his support to run for office. He said we need more godly men to run for office, especially at the state level. With all the federal overreach that's going on and the tyranny that's being pushed down, especially on states, like Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I remember watching the video that you did with Ann Marchetti. Actually, I think it was outside the abortion mill. I don't know if that was one that's right by your house or a different one in Florida.
Yes,
but just really impressed by the way that you were articulating the ideas. And so just talk about just being an abolitionist, and not just that, but abolitionist taking it to the political sphere, taking it to a campaign. And so what are you trying to do, with running for office, and what are your highest objectives in running for office?
Yeah, and you don't have to just keep it on abortion, to sell. Give us your thoughts.
Absolutely. First off, I want you guys contact Brady for me, the abolitionist candidate in Oklahoma. He doesn't have an abolitionist beard.
Yeah, we actually have pulled our support from his campaign.
Yeah, that doesn't fly
because we're just kind of like we don't support people who look pro-lifey.
Incredible guy.
Yeah,
Christian brother. Awesome commercial, but somebody's got to get him the memo.
Yeah. Maybe we can superimpose a beard and just relaunch the commercial.
Yeah.
The beard on it. Yeah.
Exactly. So, here in my district, here in House District 30, as opposed to some other candidates that you might have had on here, I'm actually facing a Democrat incumbent.
Right.
This area, it's parts of southwestern Seminole County and northwestern Orange County. So it is kind of a +3 Democrat district as we're standing at now. But there is a whole lot of NPAs, about 30,000 or so, as we're looking at right now. But the Democrat incumbent, Representative Joy Goff Marcel, endorsed by Planned Parenthood, against Second Amendment rights, pro-lockdown, pro-vaccine, pro-mask, pro-CRT. I mean, just each and every single thing that from the Christian conservative worldview that we stand on, she is for. And other Republicans were kind of timid about jumping into this race because it is a +3 Democrat district.
Yeah.
And so as I said, God had put it on my heart for a while. And with support of my wife and under prayer, I was like, hey, let's jump in for this and let's go. And as far as bringing abolition to the forefront, I've noticed that when I'm speaking at certain events, and I do my best to articulate, the tenets and the ideals and the basis of abolishing abortion as murder and defying, Roe versus Wade. Some people are just they're really surprised, like, oh, wait, we don't have to wait for Roe to be overturned? I was like, no, guys, we don't, and so that's kind of a lot of what's going on,
Yeah, real quick, I remember, I think when I was texting you to set up the podcast, you coming on, you were telling me that day you were going to speak at an event and you brought some of our pamphlets and you were going to talk about abolition. And I don't know if it was Searching for Wilberforce or your campaign page published part of what you said, when you were up on stage. So yeah, how are the people in your district responding when you present abolitionism to them as opposed to pro-lifism?
The majority of them, they're, a lot of ways they're responding the same way that I did. Like, oh, I thought we were trying to do that the whole time.
We can do that.
And then there is a little bit of, the heartbeat amendment is something that's being the same Texas style legislation that's been filed by a current representative here as well. So there's a lot of attention on that. And so I'm trying to, speak on abolition and then also speak about why heartbeat amendments are not just and why we shouldn't support those. Yeah. And so there's a lot that goes into it, and just, getting some of your guys' books and getting your literature, that helps a lot. My church, who has they were supporting the heartbeat amendment to the Constitution that they're trying to push in Florida, or the personhood amendment as well. They were supporting all that. And just one meeting with my pastor, talking to him about abolition, and then giving him some of your literature. The next week he called me. He goes, "Wow, that's biblical."
Yeah,
and now each and every single week, it's a small church, but I have Free the States, Are You an Abolitionist booklets out each and every single week. They're giving them out. So
praise the Lord.
So the more that people read that and spread the word, the greater it's going to be.
Yeah.
But as the most opposition I've had really has kind of been from within the Republican Party establishment. There's a couple of representatives that have pulled me to the side right away, and they said, "Hey, kid, if you put guns and abortion on your platform, you're going to turn off the big donors." And I said, "Wow, okay, yeah, whoa."
Oh my gosh, it'd just be me and God.
Yeah, I know.
We're gonna fail.
Heaven forbid we leave the results to God,
Yeah.
But and that's what's been wrong. Is too many they've been timid or afraid to take a stand. Some of the Republican representatives, if you look at their websites or their literature, you have to dig deep, and you might see them say, "Oh, I'm 100% pro-life," or "I support the right to life." But I just came out of the gate and I said, "Hey, out front, we're going to put abolish abortion in Florida at the forefront of our campaign." When I was looking to hire a campaign manager, I made sure that they knew the difference between pro-life and abolition, and I sent them everything as well, and they were like, "Hey, we're totally fine with the abolition language. That's great. We support you."
And it's so important, because some people would actually say, when running, kind of don't make a big deal out of this language. They won't understand you. Use pro-life so you can get into office. It's kind of like, well, if you run and you do use the language and do make the arguments, you're winning the whole time. So even if you don't win the office, you're winning converts to a biblical worldview. And it's hugely important. And it's probably one of the main things that's converting people into the movement right now. Is whenever people boldly run on the platform.
Yeah, well, also just the fact that you're doing this in like a heavily Democratic area too, I hope that when people watch this, they're just inspired by that, and they understand that like that's what we need to do. We need to do this in Democratic areas where that's the majority. We need to do this in heavily Republican areas where we're running against other Republicans, because that's the thing that's actually going to turn this whole ship around. People are going to start repenting, because I think a lot of Republicans for so long have just been like, let's go soft on this stuff. Let's not actually hammer this as hard as we can. And then there's a whole demographic of people that are Christians that are like, I don't even want to vote. Like, these guys are all weak. They're not doing what I want them to do. So why would I even engage politically? It's just a big sham. It's a joke. But with guys like you running with that stuff on the forefront, I think you light up a whole demographic that's not even being represented in a lot of politics that come out in force for it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, and everybody outside of Florida, they think it's just one big, giant, deep red state, but there are some definite blue pockets here, as I'm sure there are in some parts of Oklahoma as well. Orlando being one of them, Orlando, Miami. And so while we do have more registered Republicans, there are some liberal strongholds here within the state, and that's my district that I'm in right now. It's not hugely overly Democratic, but it is like I said, a +3 Democrat district. But as you guys have said on the show time and time again, and what I truly feel in my heart and what God has put on me with this platform, and I try to surrender this campaign to Him every day and try not to get caught up in the political worldly realities and overstress about fundraising and stuff like that. I surrender this campaign to Him. And, the duty is ours to do all that we can. The results are His. And throughout the process, even if we don't make it to Tallahassee, what we will do is we're going to educate people about abolition. We're going to convert people. We're going to, I'm trying to get more churches involved and engaged. I never thought it would be so difficult to get pastors to call you back when you're calling their office and saying, "Hey, do you want to help me end abortion in this state?" It's man, that's a big reality that I've been faced at lately. But we're going to give it all we got. And like I said, to God be the glory.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. I like what Sam said. So I like what Sam and Russell said. So Russell's talking about the importance for the cause of growing the movement, of helping people be aware of the distinctions between pro-life and abolition. We want to be clear that we're abolitionists, but also like Sam said, it's like people, the people who've been in politics a long time will think, well, you just kind of want to appeal to the status quo, appeal to where the people are already at, speak the language they're speaking. But it's like, I don't think, like, especially you just look at the Republican Party, for better or worse, whatever's happened over the past 8 or 9 years, they don't want like mealy-mouthed status quo stuff.
Yeah.
Like the Republican Party is starting to join the culture war in certain ways. And on abortion, I don't think people want more of the same pro-life lip service. I think they want people to come out and take strong stands on that issue. So in a race, I think I remember looking at your district, and I think the Democrat won with 52 or 53% of the vote. The last go around here. Yeah. If you can get the Republicans in your district excited to see this is someone who's actually going to go up there and fight for these values, you can increase turnout.
Yeah, there may have been 6% that are like, well, I'm just not going to get out of bed for this compromisey Republican.
Right.
It's like they. I mean, it's one of the things, like, there's all sorts of good and bad about Trump, but I think the thing that Trump did was like being super bold and unafraid to, like, you're not allowed to say that because it's not politically correct, or you'd be a wiser politician if you didn't say this or this. I think he actually proved, no, that's not true. There's a lot of people hungry for someone who speaks the truth plainly and boldly and doesn't sort of let the experts control their rhetoric. And I think it's refreshing. And your +3 Democrat area, it may just be because there's a bunch of Republican conservative people that just don't care about the Republicans as they are and are going to be energized by you. So So what are you doing? You're getting out there and you're knocking a lot of doors, and how's it going?
Yeah, we're starting knocking doors. Really, I go into each and every single event that I can to get in front of people, to speak to them about the campaign, about the issues that we're standing on. I was told again, hey, don't say anything about this while you're running. When you get elected and you win, then you can do whatever you want. And that's just that whole pathway of deception, and I would rather lose standing on the morals and values, especially standing on something that's biblical. And I agree with you. I think the Republican Party, the Republican base, they're in need of people that are going to be bold, that are going to have a spine, that are going to stand against any kind of tyranny, against any kind of overreach. And when it comes to abortion, I don't think they want that traditional lip service, especially here in Florida, where nullification is a big popular trend. And look, we got the second most popular Republican in the world as our governor. And one of the reasons is because he's taking a strong stance against Biden. He's pushing back. And if he can't do it himself, if he has some strong fighters in the state house that are going to stand against any kind of vaccine mandates or federal overreach, or against the liberal teacher unions that are trying to muzzle kids in the schools, and all this other evil transgender indoctrination, all this stuff that's happening in our state, then I think it's going to fire up the base even more. And there are a good amount of non-political establishment guys that are running throughout the state. Actually, up in House District 21, Tyari Apia, he's a guy I've connected with, and we spoke at an event together, the Black Robe Regiment event a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
The Bales were there, David Bale, Maria Bale, great abolitionists from up in the Pensacola area. So they were there, and we got to share about abolition with him. And then, lo and behold, right on the stage, he said, we need to abolish abortion. We can't find compromise anymore. So, a lot of people are being convicted.
It's happening.
And the more that we share this with other people, I think some of the entrenched Republicans are going to kind of feel pressured to go along and to honor God. And as it said in Acts 5:29, we'll obey God rather than man.
Yeah. Actually, a news story that just occurred to me right now as we're talking, I remember seeing an article about, because Ron DeSantis is so wildly popular and he's doing so well in Florida, that the Democratic National Committee is actually not going to spend money trying to unseat him because they think it's a lost cause. And so in Florida, you've got obviously, Miami, Orlando, you've got the pockets that are very, very far left, but the state as a whole, to a large degree because of Ron DeSantis, is becoming very conservative, that the Democrats aren't even are really pulling at the national Democrats are pulling out of that state. And so it's like, now is the time to press. Now is not the time to go for more just establishment, whatever. No, you've got them literally exiting the state with all their money and resources.
And it might
it's
not
time
even,
to go.
Yeah, and it might not even be an indication that the state is going more red, but it certainly is an indication that someone who takes a hardline stance gets supported by the people that are there in the state who love those ideas. And they're going to be the people that are coming out in force to make sure they stay. So like a guy like you, they would want to, you would get that same effect. You wouldn't get that effect from being a sort of middle of the road guy who doesn't sound like he's going to do anything. Appeasing the moderates. You're going to be someone who's actually more supported if you actually just go full force into we need to abolish abortion. We need to ignore Roe. We need to not let the tyranny from the federal government stand, because the purpose of a state government is supposed to be to push back against unconstitutional rulings from a rogue court or from a overly inflated federal government that's just doing whatever they want. Yeah, it's supposed to be a check.
Yeah, it just dawns on me also, if you can get as loud about this issue of the abolition as possible and it becomes a debate, it's going to get to Ron DeSantis, and he's going to have to see it. And it would be good if he's the kind of governor who's already going to be pushing back on mandates and vaccines and all, passports and all that kind of stuff. He's going to push back on that. He's going to be very primed to be like, oh, and let's also do this for preborn humans, especially with what could be happening if Biden, presses for, some kind of federal protections of abortion in the wake of whatever Supreme Court, whatever they do. You could really gain his ear just by making a big deal out of it. And again, whether you win or lose your seat, you're winning if you're getting it on his radar and he's able to take the right position. I think you're going to win, by the way. I don't want to be I don't want to be a naysayer or anything.
No. Yeah.
You're
winning all the time.
Yeah.
I think the louder we are about it, especially in this age, as I said, where nullification's a big buzzword, and where DeSantis is being very strong against, any kind of federal tyranny. And we're here in Florida, we've nullified the Supreme Court and defied when it comes to marijuana laws and gun laws. Yeah. So again, we take that same approach to saving innocent life. I didn't realize, again, until I became an abolitionist, because I didn't dive into the facts, that Florida's third in the nation for abortions. In 2020, 74,000, just under 75,000 image bearers of Christ were butchered in Florida. And it was under Republican-led leadership. Yeah. The other states like California and New York, liberal-led. As awful and sad as it may seem, they have a liberal legislature. Here in Florida, we've had a Republican majority for a while. Yeah. So it's time to hold these guys accountable. And it's time that true candidates that are not establishment, that will actually stand on the two greatest documents that ever exist in the face of the earth, the Constitution and God's sovereign word, the Holy Bible, that are going to stand on those two documents, and they're going to push that to the forefront in the state legislature, and tell the Supreme Court to pound sand and say, you will not murder children in this beautiful, great state of Florida. That is what it's going to take. And it's going to take the church to get behind as well. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, you were mentioning getting the conversation to DeSantis would be a good thing, and I think that'd be a very good thing, because as we saw with Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, she was on top of the world for a while there because she had a good response to COVID. So she was speaking and all the Republican stuff. Everyone was saying she's going to be the Republican, front runner in 2024. But then she makes one mistake. She vetoed the bill that would have kept women out of, or would have kept biological men out of women's sports and women's locker rooms. Yes. She vetoed that. She makes one mistake there, and all of a sudden it's gone. Yep. And so if you can get this conversation to Ron DeSantis, of course he's not going to want to not be super anti-abortion when he's trying to be a Republican frontrunner in 2024 and beyond, right? Yeah. He's not going to be able to really oppose that if we get it to him. And if he looks like he's going to be soft, like he's like, oh, I don't support abolition because I don't support nullification. Wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he almost can't reject abolition.
Yeah.
He may have handlers that are like, we just don't want this to come up for whatever reason because they've been indoctrinated in the pro-life stuff. Yeah. But it really is you could predict almost with certainty that he would be on the side of nullifying.
He would have to be.
The Supreme Court opinions in Roe, and so
Yeah, when it came to that, a similar bill to what Kristi Noem turned down here in Florida last year, the governor signed that. He signed that biological males are not allowed to compete in female sports, and he did a big press conference. He did it on June 1st, the first day of Pride Month, as well. And he said, hey, the NCAA, they want to not sanction events here. They want to pull funding for our state. Go ahead and try. Be the results as they may be, but we're going to protect women in sports. And so again, he has that approach of pushing back against judicial tyranny. So we get abolition in front of him. Get support from both sides of the legislature. Man, he has no choice. You're right. He almost cannot turn.
You'll be very key in doing that.
So.
Yep.
Yeah. I can tell you in my short time, like here in being involved in politics, it's very similar to professional wrestling. Very,
like the hair, like the big hair. Are the chairs like hitting people with chairs? There was a time when they did that sort of stuff a lot in Congress in the 19th century.
Minus the big hair and the spray tans. I mean, it's very similar. It's instead of hitting each other with chair shots, where they give verbal jabs on Facebook. It's like telephone, telegram, telepolitician. You tell somebody one thing, they're going to hear about it in Tallahassee. So that's kind of how it is here. But it's really wild, the similarities between pro wrestling and politics.
That's interesting, and it's not real. Like these politicians aren't really wrestling. It's all a show. Unless I'm wrong, it really is real wrestling.
They're not really going to battle on the house floor.
Somebody somewhere is actually writing out who wins.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
We could go really deep down the foil tin hat.
We could. Somebody in the Republican Party is basing who's going to win based on fundraising. I mean,
Well, it's interesting how quickly I think that even to whatever degree it is sort of a rigged game, it's interesting how quickly an abolitionist can throw a wrench in all that. Because we got a guy like Warren Hamilton here in Oklahoma, where he runs, and he's got the endorsement. His opponent, Larry Boggs, has the endorsement of our governor, pretty much every state senator, and all of our
big pro-life groups.
Yeah, all the senators that we send to Washington.
To DC,
they're all behind him. Way more funding. He's got like 4 times the budget.
4 times.
Larry Boggs does. Larry Boggs gets defeated just because Warren Hamilton is out and out an abolitionist. He's not a guy that would vote down the abolition bill. Larry Boggs did not vote on the abolition bill. He abstained, and that was his biggest mistake. And so he got outed just because of that. But I think that just having the right principles on this stuff and being willing to do the right thing and rejecting any wrong way, because the Lord hates every false way, you're going to be causing a big problem for a lot of the establishment people there, just by virtue of the fact that you're not like them.
Right, exactly. Abolitionists can really throw a wrench. And what you guys have said on the podcast before, it's about changing the culture. You know what I mean? Shifting the culture of what we've been programmed for the past 48 years, that any kind of incremental step is a positive step in the right direction. If I hear that one more time, my head's going to explode.
Get off the dang treadmill. Yes, you're taking steps on a hamster wheel.
Yeah, exactly. Steps. Yeah, when abolition is the answer. So we're not gonna bend. We're not gonna bow. Certainly not gonna take it off my platform. Every time I speak, I'm going to talk about equal protection for the unborn child. And I think just educating people about the exceptions as well. That is something else that, what about rape or incest? And I think you guys have done a fantastic job of speaking about biblical principles as to why, we can't make exceptions as well for rape or incest. An image bearer of Christ is an image bearer of Christ. We shouldn't punish, the child. We shouldn't murder or dismember or chemically poison a child for the sins of their father. Rape should be a capital crime that should be punished to the utmost degree. But God can make an amazing testimony out of that beautiful baby that was created out of that awful act. And so, just kind of educating folks on that and why that is important. And another thing that I really learned from you guys is how, Democrats will use an ectopic pregnancy to say that it's an abortion, and that's like, you know, very offensive to folks that have been in that predicament where they have lost a child, where every attempt has been made to save the child and the mother. You know, it's just, you know, so many points that we need to educate voters on, and other candidates, and just, you know, the culture as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I'm really encouraged by what's going on in Florida, just with the work that Mauricio has been doing with the educational course that he had, and you know, I've gotten some messages, you know, through the Free the States contact page from people who are like, hey, I'm in Miami, hey, I'm in this part of Florida, you know, how do I get connected? And so just getting them plugged into what's going on in Florida. And then Sam and I were at the G3 conference in Atlanta, and there was this guy wearing a shirt with the logo of a church that I know in Dallas. And I said, hey, are you from that church? And he said, no, I'm from a different church in Florida. And then we got talking, and I realized he's at the same church that Bonnie Kanani goes to. And so he's like, yeah, I'm an abolitionist. I know you, and I know what you guys are doing. And so just seems like there's a lot of momentum happening in Florida. And so I know that's, you know, those guys are all going to be turning out, and I'm sure going to be helping your campaign and stuff. So it's encouraging to see, you know, what's going on in Florida. Mm-hmm.
The movement is growing in Florida. And for those listeners that don't know, Bonnie Kanani, she runs AbolishAbortionFlorida.com, and she actually drafted the model legislation of the Abolish Abortion in Florida Act. That I'm going to file, and that we've handed the legislators before in the past. And it's incredible what that woman has done, and, you know, just the blood, the sweat, and the tears that they have poured in. Rusty Thomas has made many trips here from Texas as well, to help grow the abolitionist movement here. And, you know, there are churches that are having me come and allowing me to come in and speak. And, you know, when we talk about abolish abortion versus just, you know, traditional, typical pro-life legislation, it's very easy to see what is biblical and what is based in the political realities. And so, you know, the movement is going to grow. It's really excited to see what God is doing here in the state of Florida.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, on that, it's going to continue to grow, and one of the ways that it's going to grow is through your campaign. And so, so what is your website?
My website is votedrake.com. And then on Facebook, you can find my political page at Vote Drake Wuertz. Sam's going to put a great right there. We
want people to be very serious about that. I mean, we always joke about it, but like pause the dang podcast and go support this brother who's doing this. Don't just hear about these good things. And to connect it all the way back from one of the earlier points, sometimes it's just people need to hear the message.
Yes.
Like that's all they need to hear. And that means sometimes the only thing keeping them from hearing it is a Facebook boost, like putting a little money behind like an ad. And so you do need to raise money. It's like the least favorite part for a lot of people. You do need to raise money. You do need to get volunteers who are going to hand out stuff. You need to print material, and you need to be able to do this and still feed yourself and keep your lights on.
Yeah.
We want people to hear you and hear your story, and we want to talk to you. But we're unabashed about this. We want people to support you.
Yeah. And just to, anyone who's in Florida, just to drive home how important this is, when you guys get a state legislator like Drake, everything starts changing quickly. It's all downhill from there. As soon as you get a bill, and as soon as you get Republicans killing that bill, and then as soon as you get churches that are like pressured into coming on board with opposing abolition, that's when everything blows up. That's when all the abolitionist pastors start coming in. That's when all the more campaigns start, you know, coming up like wildfires. That's the thing that's really going to be the mechanism to get abolition rolling quickly downhill in Florida. So if you're thinking about one thing that you can do in Florida that's really, really, really going to have a gigantic impact, it would be get behind Drake Wuertz's campaign, make sure that he gets into the state office so that he can run this bill. Because we need somebody in there who's actually a very clear voice and leadership from the Senate floor or from the House floor, saying this is what we're doing, and changing that whole direction from the political realm.
Yeah. This is a campaign. This is money well spent. This is a guy who's out there. He's campaigning as an abolitionist, out and out.
That's what I was about to add.
Right, unabashed. And it's a campaign where he's a Republican running against a Democrat who just beat the Republican by a few hundred votes last time. It was a close race. And
she, like I said, she's endorsed by Planned Parenthood. I mean, she's radically pro-abortion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is extremely doable. And the point you were making there, I am not one that's going to endorse somebody who is like an abolitionist, but they're not running on it. Mm-hmm. You know, because if you're not running on it, you're not likely to do it when you get in there. Because you're not running on it because you think it's going to cost you something. Well, once you're in there, it's still going to cost you something.
Yeah.
So candidates who will not run on abolition and not include it boldly in their platform are basically candidates you cannot trust. I don't care how what they're promising. So whenever somebody's running on an abolition platform, what Sam's saying, it's so important that he wins and he gets in there, and you know your investment is good, that it's going to have returns. Because you're not going to become less abolitionist after you've won as an abolitionist.
We want people that
you're either running on it or you're not.
We want people that are willing to even lose or willing to get unseated next year or in 4 years, because they know that running it is the thing that we have to do. Like that's why we're there, to talk about the gospel of Jesus Christ, to bring that up into conflict against abortion, and it does not matter the costs. That's what it has to be. And people that are concerned about the costs are not concerned about Christ most of the time. So
And we wouldn't even have you on your show if that wasn't you.
I don't think I would be invited if I didn't have it on my platform. Again, man, we're standing strong on abolition, and I appreciate you promoting my website, and those listeners out there. Obviously, first and foremost, I need your prayers for me, for my family. I mean, we've had attacks from both sides. People trying to get us to drop out and run for school board or something of the sort like that, just because we're, too far right, quote unquote, which really just means we're standing for righteousness. Prayers for my family, for our provision, for our protection, for my business. I am a small business manager. I manage and operate a construction sales company here in Florida. So, and again, any financial support, it goes a long way. We got to get signs, we got to get banners, we got to get T-shirts. Up to this point, it's been true grassroots support. With the $25, $50, $100 donations, it's been steady, and it truly does mean a lot. So, whatever you can do, as James and Sam and T. Russ said, it's going to a great cause. And it's going to advance the kingdom, because Christ is going to return for his church someday. We don't know the day or the hour, but until then, we're to be busy about his business. And this is certainly kingdom business that we're conducting right here.
Amen.
Amen. Well, that's good stuff.
I'm coming to Oklahoma in February for Abolition Day.
Oh, right. Looking forward to that.
Well, hey, you better bring a lot of stuff, set up a table, and ask everybody that we want to fund us to fund you.
Okay.
Totally fine with that. There's enough money. He's got a cow on every hill, and it's just the better everyone's doing in all their different organizations and campaigns. It just all helps everybody. So I'm glad to hear that you're coming. I'd like to challenge you to a weightlifting contest, arm wrestling contest. Just kind of want to see if I could take you down. I'm just kidding.
I'll have to bust out my old, dig up the winter coat for going to Oklahoma in February. But
it's alarmingly cold.
I'm incredibly excited. Oklahoma, where the movement, the modern day movement of abolitionism, just truly blossomed from. And I'm just excited to be there in the presence, just, as an abolitionist, as a Christian, as a brother standing on God's word, just excited for what God's doing in Oklahoma, what God's going to do in Idaho, in Alaska, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Indiana with John Jacob, just where all these abolitionists are rising up. It's like, it's really exciting to see, the Christians that are getting engaged in this political battle and are doing it for the right reasons. And standing on God's word. So I'm excited to be there, excited to, hang out with you guys and just rally for abolition.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. And the dates on that, the Abolition Now conference are February. I should always know this, but I don't. I always look at James like they're February sometime, right? Was it February
5th through the 8th is the conference.
5th through the 8th, and we should have all the registration and stuff up and available for people watching this. And
Yep, should be up by the time this podcast airs. So the conference registration for February 5th through the 8th, and then Abolition Day, the rally at the Capitol, will be on the 8th in the morning.
Yeah. So hosted by Edmonds First Baptist Church. The pastor there is Blake Gideon. We were actually meeting with him this morning, walking through the facilities and where we're going to do this and that and stuff. And it's just like blowing my mind. It's like, wait a second. This is a nice church, and they're respected. This respected pastor, former president of the Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma, is promoting abolitionism. We're going to have a conference here, and we're going to have a lot of people from Oklahoma, but crazy people from all over the country here. It's exciting. But, to go back to an earlier point, one of the things that broke that mold was getting people in the political, legislative realm, whether they were in office or running for office, for like in the case of like Dan Fisher, running for office on abolition, and people that being, because sometimes people don't want to listen to just some person on Facebook or on a street corner. You start having pastors and politicians talk about it, they're like prone to listen. And so it's just so very important. And as James said, you start doing that in Florida and you get there, it's going to expose the pro-life incrementalist. It's going to expose the compromise, and more people are going to come into the movement. So
absolutely. I have somewhat of an Oklahoma connection with Dan Fisher. My church here in Orlando, Liberty Church Orlando, we have a resident pastor, but we watch a satellite sermon essentially from pastors Dan Fisher and Paul Blair, who I believe are based in Edmond. Maybe? Yes. So. And it was so crazy the way God worked. Long story short, the church that we had been attending in 2020, like a lot of churches, there was almost this necessary division. They supported the BLM Marxism, closed their doors, did YouTube live streams, masks and all that stuff. And so we made the choice to step away. And then, God guided me to this church, Liberty Church. And then I realized like Dan Fisher is one of the lead pastors with Paul Blair. I was like, oh, Dan Fisher, that was the abolitionist governor candidate. I was like, wow, this is great. And then,
small world.
They're in the Orlando campus. Yeah, they were very receptive in allowing me to share Free the States literature, in the lobbies of the church. So
you're like, this is weird. This shouldn't be so natural.
Yes. Yes.
I heard you have to fight for this sort of thing.
I know, right? Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I really appreciate you guys having me on, and the three of you and Rachel, the whole staff of Free the States. I'm glad to see your staff is growing, and that you're still eating and paying the bills. That's good.
Kind of.
But you guys, seriously have done so much for the kingdom, and just for me, just such a great resource for me to really expand upon the basis of abolishing abortion. And it's just such great material just to share with other people. So I genuinely appreciate you, brothers.
Yeah, well, that's encouraging, and we. Just to repeat the point, it's like we do need funding to continue to do this stuff. You need funding to do this stuff, and I think we need to be unabashed about that. But all that to the side, God is doing something. Like it is very clear. I mean that the number of times every week that I see or hear some providential connection. Like I didn't, until you said it, I didn't know you were going to like a church plant from Dan Fisher. Like there was I didn't know that. But it's like the fruit of things going on here are helping there. It's like, why is it easy for you to put Free the States material in the lobby of your church?
Yeah, right.
It shouldn't be. Oh, wow. Okay, God's doing something, because we didn't engineer that. We didn't choose your geographical location. So God is definitely building a movement here and leading this thing.
He's weaving it together, man. He really is. He's calling his soldiers into battle. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. Drake, thanks so much for coming on. I think this was a really good episode. I'm glad that our viewers will get to know you a little bit, and hopefully, once again, go to votedrake.com, learn more about Drake, go donate to his campaign. And we're just really excited to see how it goes, and to hopefully see you enter the Tallahassee legislature come next November. So.
Yeah, send a donation. Also send a prayer.
Yep.
Pray for this brother, because I think you're probably gonna, you're gonna get attacked, and I'm sure the devil wants to sift you like wheat. Mm-hmm. Good luck with that. Stand strong, abide in Christ, and we can get a lot of people funding you, get a lot of people praying for you. And then once you're in there, backing you up whenever you do the things that you're saying you're going to do. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, we will try. We will try to help you as much as we can.
I appreciate that, guys. And for the Florida listeners, in addition to visiting my website, if you go to abolishabortionflorida.com, you can subscribe to the newsletter. No matter where you're at in Florida, we can connect abolitionists statewide, because the movement is growing here in the Sunshine State. We are going to abolish abortion to the glory of God, and it's like I said, it's incredible what's going on here. So again, thank you guys. Free the states. This is awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good to have you. So this was episode 65, where we are as harsh as truth and as uncompromising as justice, joined by Drake Wuertz, who is going to be in the Florida legislature as harsh as truth and as uncompromising as justice. We will see you guys next week.
Amen.